Yes, my name is Vilhelm. I've worked at EQT together with Drew before, and I know Miko through AI circles, I guess. Um, um, yes, I worked for a very long time at EQT, and I before that I worked with AI at Klarna. Mostly AI stuff all the way. And since 2.5 years ago, I founded a company with two other guys called QA.tech that does automatic verification essentially of changes in the browser. So we'll dig into those. But I thought um, about this talk and kind of the current trends in the market and things, and some of the things that I think we're doing pretty well, and of course we can always do better. But it's like really leaning into the agentic coding. Since we're building within this space, it is super important for us to really leverage this and understand where it can take us. Um, and I think if you look at stats that from different kind of research, so Stanford, for example, did a large research during last year where they have, or continuously they're continuing this, where they talked to 140,000 engineers or something like this, and it's pretty clear that they have some trends in there. They do see a lot of individual productivity gains when you talk to engineers and you report like how they can how much more effective they can become when using agent technology. But at the same time, they see very little on average productivity gains in companies, and that gap is actually quite large. Like some are super forward leaning and get a lot of productivity gains, and some are actually losing. And that gap seems to be widening over time as well. So I think we're standing in front of a large AI adoption wave that needs to happen to kind of start closing this gap a bit. And that's why I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how we do things, because I think really leaning into this and letting AI be part of the entire chain, thinking about how you structure processes and teams and things are super important in order to actually leverage this. And then, of course, since we are building with agents, deep dive a little bit into how they work and how we run the verification on things. Yeah. So to start with, this is essentially what our kind of flow looks like. So when an issue is reported, so we share a lot of Slack channels with customers, or have different monitoring going on via Sentry and things. And those issues, when they're reported, are automatically kind of analyzed. And then it's possible for us to already then in Slack create tickets. We used to do a lot of automatic ticket creation and PRs, but it turned out to be extremely expensive. So it's pretty nice to have some kind of gating there to have a human decide on what you actually want to spend time on or money on to fix. And then an AI coding agent takes over. This could either be locally on your machine, like everybody's doing, fixing things with Cloud Code Cursor, or we try to run it more and more now in cloud agents, because you're kind of constrained on your local environment to only run one local environment. You could, of course, have a lot of different agents working together, but it's still only one environment that you can run on ports and databases and things to actually verify the changes. When this is code work is complete, we create the PR, and that's automatically done via the cloud agents or like commands and things in locally. And then we trigger an automatic review agent. We've tried all of them, and we decided to actually build our own for different reasons. The main one was that it's much easier for us to actually kind of encode the stuff that we think is super important, and also provide it with a context about our entire environment, which is pretty complex, because a lot of different systems and message passing and queues and things between them, which sometimes these normal review agents have a hard time keeping up with. Another benefit of this is that it was easier for us to actually make those tools available already to the coding agents. So the agent that is running in cloud can actually perform the review before even submitting the PR, which is nice because then it can fix problems. After this, we trigger our own verification on ourselves. Essentially, then we have the like preview deployment on the PR that we spawn. We have an agent that analyzes the changes in the code towards the knowledge that we have about our own application, and then spawn agents that interact with the features, validate that they work before actually shipping it, we can merge it. It also then writes a review on this PR with the screenshots and links and things, and then we can review the code and manually approve. Then goes into our pre-deployment live deployed PR, and we run through more sanity checks, clicking in the larger kind of set of the application, and then we can deploy. And typically, a lot of customers that we work with, they have these manual or like QA sessions that normally take quite a long time. So it ranges from a few days to several weeks, where they essentially block the release cycles. And if you're able to shift stuff much more left in this process, and then be able to run this stuff automatically with agents, you can reduce that time drastically. So we have had one customer, for example, that reduced from like 2-week cycles to 1 hour, or maybe 2 in some cases. So that's a dramatic increase. And I think, yeah, that's what we're trying to leverage. So I thought we'd kind of follow this through a bit, and I will show you in the platform and dig into the details of it. But the Slack integrations are a few different bots and also possible to mention and things. I think this is pretty common. Most people have some kind of at least linear maybe integration in Slack these days. We also have these bots that look at feedback and analyze things. So for example, if a customer gives us feedback in the UI, or if there is an error in a chat, then that is automatically triaged and added to our tickets. Here it's been analyzing things, and it got like a preview end for a problem for one of the customers, and then that was something that we could fix. So it added a ticket for this. Yes, that's like the first step. And then it's also then possible to trigger these cloud agents. The cloud agents, the benefit with this is a little bit that I alluded to before, is the possibility to run in a much more asynchronous manner. And it also makes it much easier to collaborate and work on things together. So if I trigger, like you can mention, we use Cursor heavily for the cloud agents. You can either trigger them through Slack or through tickets or anything like this, and give them instructions. And then it's possible for Eric maybe to trigger some of this, and then some of that work may need human input, and then they can just ping some other person in the team and say like, "Oh, could you take a look at this because I can't figure it out?" And then you can collaborate and work across together with the agents, which is very powerful. The crux here, I think, is to get the environments to work nicely. So it is a little bit wonky still to get all of the cloud agents to have recent and good cloud environments. You have to fiddle a lot with different images and things. Hopefully, we will see more improvements to this in the not too distant future. Yes, and then this review agent takes over on the PR and kind of looks through a lot of things that we've found very important for us to think about and review. Very similar to what other review agents are doing. Like, of course, there's error handling and not submitting keys and like all of these things, but then also other things that is important to think about in our infrastructure. And this also has integrations. So the architecture here, we have both like GitHub Actions that can run on mentions in a query if I want to ask it to review something specifically or trigger an extra review or something. It also has this local IDE command both in Cloud Code and in Cursor, so that both there is possible to trigger these things and also kind of get feedback earlier in the loops. And then this Cursor Cloud agent can also do this, and on pre-push kind of self-review itself to ensure that stuff is actually living up to the standards. So essentially what we do is we kind of go through a lot of different stages, but the important things I think is that we kind of look at the diffs, analyze the changes, and then we have this kind of context, like living context that continuously is updated as the agents work with things. And as always, I think context is the most important things when working with AI in general. You need to have a smart system to manage that, both kind of important facts and things about what it needs to know about, but what's also important here is like a decision bug. And in this case, we actually decided to, instead of just wonking around with a lot of different markdown files and things, we decided to move that into its own GitHub repo. So the agent actually has its own GitHub repo with context that we can then do operations on, and you naturally also get the change log of all the things, so it's easier for the agent to understand when it took a specific decision, or we kind of added something to this context, which makes it much more living and easier to manage. Not to spend too much time on this, but then we get into the PR end-to-end verification using QA.tech. And this is essentially kind of triggered automatically, of course, on PR creation, and you need to have this live environment or preview environment available so that it's something to interact with. And GitHub triggers webhooks on these things, so it's easy for us to trigger on that. And what then happens is that we have an orchestrating agent that gets the information from the PR, and then analyzes things and triggers these small agents to interact with the change. I thought I'd show you that in a little bit more detail as well. Yes, and let's show that instead now. So here, for example, we have a PR. It was committed from a cloud agent from Eric that I had a screenshot of before, using Cursor to work on it. Essentially, there was a bug reported from our founder in Slack saying that there is these admin budgets are really ugly, and I don't like it when I'm demoing to customers. But can you please fix it? Perfect task for Cursor. And then here you have this kind of review from the agent. So it's ran through 3 different tests, can choose how many it needs, because depending on the complexity of the features and if it potentially kind of affects other things. We kind of go in and look at the conversation. It is structured as a chat, so it's easy for us or for a customer to kind of go in and understand what has actually happened. The agent then starts with fetching like more information about the pull request, and then it looks through a lot of different things. And here is also interesting because there's so much data and so many things that an agent can do. Similar to what some coding agents do, we have decided to use batch tooling in order to actually analyze this, because it's so much easier to keep the context compact and progressively disclose things to agents rather than bloating the context up front, because a lot of the information, it's usually, even if you do very smart searches, not always super relevant. And in this case, it kind of starts by loading a lot of test cases and things, and what's already available, and then it uses Bash to analyze the results. And when it is done, it is doing a search in our feature graph. So the feature graph is essentially our knowledge graph of the application. So when an application, when you kind of when we onboard a customer, essentially, or continuously, we scan and use agents to gather information about the platform that we're about to test. Similarly to what a human would do, you kind of, if you're tasked to test a new platform you've never seen before, you need to start kind of building a mental model of what you're actually able to do. So you try different things like creating an invoice, or in our case, running tests and creating test plans, chatting with the agents and things. This is also, since it's structured in the graph, you can do a lot of deep dives and searches in that graph, but that tends also to be a lot of information. So there's, in that graph, there's a lot of descriptions about what pages and actions and which tests touch which parts, and we also have the possibility to ingest documentation, which then enriches the graph and has a lot of extra information. We have a lot of embeddings and things in there, so it's easy for it to search, and then it can also expand and work through the graph to find interesting things. But again, to limit the context bloat, we run this as a sub-agent. So it's actually run then as a kind of research task. So it should kind of find this information in some way. And here you can see what the sub-agent is doing. Like, it's researching this kind of chat interface, the header badges, agent labels, and post-hoc trace, which was what the change was about. And then listing different features, searching through, getting some specific details, doing some more searches, and then finally kind of giving back a condensed kind of research report on what is important for the agent to know about in this case. Then that knowledge in the knowledge graph is what's available in the production platform, right? So there might be changes and slight diffs on what is changed in the PR and this kind of preview environment. So then you can also kind of spawn and gather a bit more information on that specific thing. So then it runs some extra agents to actually review and understand the change. It then auto-generates the objectives and tests for this specific feature, and then later kind of posts a review to back to GitHub. You can also look at one of these tests. So a test in our platform is essentially a task for an agent to complete. It's just structured in a test kind of format. So first you have a goal. Essentially, the only thing that the agent needs to be able to run this test is a goal, which makes it easy for us to generate and understand different things from the graph and then generate these objectives for the agent to run. But then in order to make the tests a bit more stable, we also, together when we analyze the graph, we can understand different steps and things that needs to be done. And then we automatically generate these steps for the agent, which is essentially a plan, right? And also we have this expected result, which is in the evaluation when it has been able to kind of, or not been able to achieve the goal, then it is analyzing whether or not that was successful. And if we only have a goal, then if it succeeded, then good. But it might be things and nuances that it needs to think about. So here it should display agent and post-hoc trace badges and right icon, but they should be visibly distinct, accessible, and properly positioned relative to message content, just to kind of make sure that it focuses on these things. And these traces are also a way to be able to understand whether or not it's actually doing the right thing. So in here we can move this. In here you can see what the agent is doing. So here it starts with clicking a new chat. It's writing a message, list my test cases. It then kind of gets this response back. It scrolls. It then kind of hovers on this message in order to see these new kind of badges that looks nicer and smaller than they were doing before. Then writes thank you, because it's important to be very polite to other agents. And then it checks that it's also available there on the hover on the second iteration. Then the agent is kind of doing this analysis, which is essentially in free text then analyzing if this goal was successful, writing this explanation of what it did and why it was considered successful. If it's not successful, we can look at the other test that was actually not successful. It will write why it was not successful. And those things and findings that it so in this case, it was checking the post-hoc badge at the top, and it didn't like that it was in light mode, I think. Yeah, exactly. This is based really label in dark mode. Should be visible with correct dark mode styling. Badge is visible. Voila. There is no mention. So trace page fails the expected result. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of completes the chain on the PR. And then we have the merge to our main, and then our main is actually structured as a kind of, we have hooks on that using GitHub Actions to create another PR, which we call the live deploy PR, and I can show you how it looks as well. Yeah, so here it looks like a live deploy PR, where you get like a change log of all the different things that are merged together here, and then we trigger our kind of larger suite of things that should work in the platform with our agents, interacting with all the different things, making sure that they that stuff is working as it should, which it apparently is not doing at the moment. Yes, so you have this kind of larger suite with a lot of dependencies and things that is running through. And when that is actually done, we are kind of happy to click merge and get this feature out into the production. Yes, that is the entire chain, and I probably forgot to mention something, but I'm happy to kind of discuss this a bit more with you guys if you have any questions or something like this.